Hello, and welcome back to the Alpha Male Podcast. The podcast where we talk about being an alpha male the right way in today's society. I'm your host, Michael Melito. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. God is number one. I hope to recognize that in everything that I do. This podcast being no different. I'll roll into a abbreviated bio, the minor housekeeping stuff, and then into the body of the episode. You can generally skip to about 4 minutes if you just want to go into the meat of the episode. So, grew up in the South, what most would consider poor, hunting and fishing, shooting at a very early age, joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours. After those, I was an urban warfare instructor, desert warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. After that, I went to work for LAPD. I worked regular police officer patrol assignments and more specialized assignments in law enforcement. Did that for quite a few years. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify. I've also been the commander of a tactical team, a special response team in a large metropolitan area where our primary job was to stop active shooters. I have been a professional big game hunter and guide, slaying all manner of beasts, from whitetail deer to mule deer, just on my own, to professionally hunting things like buffalo and elk. I've slain bear and wolf. So whether I'm hunting just for myself to put meat on the table or for the enjoyment and sport of being a predator, or for, just being out in the wilderness, being a man, slayed all manner of beasts. I've done quite a bit of competition shooting. I am a state rifle and pistol champion a few times over, a few different states. I've won more shooting competitions than I can remember. I give all the credit to God. All the talents, all the skills I've been given is a gift from God. Everything that I've been able to do and come back from safely is by God's grace. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and fingers for battle. Psalm 144. With that, guys, a few housekeeping things. The last Alpha Male podcast I recorded, it sounded fine on the recording Audacity, what I use. But thankfully, one of the listeners contacted me and said it sounded weird when it was on whatever platform they were listening it to. And I went to iTunes, and sure enough, it was like a double recording. And I don't know why it did that. I don't know that I did anything differently than I normally do. But for this one, since I'll be moving this week and starting a new job, I figured I would go back to the old school way where I just talk into my phone, no editing. But I've never had a problem with it uploading wrong on iTunes. Also, I'm currently living off grid, and that saves me a trip to go into town when I'm in the middle of moving. So for you, the guys that like the old school, me just talking into the iPhone and uploading it without really any kind of effects or editing or anything like that, here you go. Today's topic, gonna be a fun one. Today we're gonna be talking about just cool kit. What guy doesn't like to talk about cool kit? So I'm just gonna go over a few things that I've used that I think are just pretty neat. The first one I'm gonna talk about, pretty cool. It's called an Ulti Clip. I've got it right in my pocket right now. It's part of my EDC. ULTI CLIP. Ulti Clip. And this is just a really cool clip. It attaches, you could attach it a bunch of different ways, but generally you attach it with a couple of screws. And it's like a very secure clip for clipping onto your pocket, or I'm sure you could use it for molly gear or for a backpack or something like that. But it's a very secure clip. It's not like a chintzy clip that comes with a lot of stuff that you just clip. And it's not really secure. If you did a cartwheel, it wouldn't fall out. If somebody grabbed it and pulled it, it wouldn't come out of your pocket. It's very secure. It's called an Ulti Clip again. And it's really cool. And I bought one because, actually for this podcast, I was talking about EDC and EDC knives. And I was experimenting with carrying a fixed blade knife. I still think a go-to for most men most of the time is your Buck 110 Slim or your Buck 110 knife. But if you want to carry a fixed blade, like I said, I'm living off grid a lot of times. I just go foraging, gather my food the old-fashioned way, foraging and hunting and fishing. And for that, a fixed blade is kind of nice sometimes. And this lets you carry a fixed blade inside your pocket. So you carry it the same way you would carry a pocket knife. It just slips down into your pocket. You're not probably carrying a giant Rambo knife or something, but I don't really carry those anyway. But for a decent size, what I would consider an ideal size knife blade, between 3 and 4 inches, it slips right in your pocket and you got a fixed blade knife. And I like to kind of tuck it back in, so unless it's some super bright color in your pocket, it kind of blends right in with the seam of your pants. Nobody even really knows. I've never had anybody call me out on it. And it's just a really great product, and it's really cool. So I thought I would pass that on to you guys. Really cool kit. They're like $15 or something, depending on where you get them. But that's probably a good ballpark price. The next one I'm going to talk about is just a multi-tool. And I have been given multi-tools over the years. I've used a bunch of different ones, Gerber's, Leatherman's. The one that I'm going to recommend, though, I think is $6. At least it was in that ballpark the last time I checked at Bass Pro or Cabela's. Now those two are combined, so they both carry them, I believe. One maybe marked Bass Pro or one maybe marked Cabela's. But it's a little multi-tool. It's like $6. And what I like about it is that, one, it's $6, so if you lose it, you're not going to cry about it. Two is it has pretty much all the right tools. In fact, let me pause this and go grab one. Now the one I have is a Cabela's one. And I don't know if they make different styles with different tools, but this one has a pair of needle nose pliers that, are fairly good for the price. They fit together well, they pinch well, good stand-in for tweezers and all but the finest work. It has a decent sheep's foot style knife blade. It's not gonna, butcher a Tyrannosaurus Rex. But it would do most of the things that you need it to. Also has, the combination style screwdriver where it's a flathead Phillips head. It's got both of those. And I really like that it has a saw blade, like a sheep's foot style saw blade as well. And that's pretty neat. There is a time where saw blades come in handy, where you don't want to destroy the good, blade on your knife, the good sharpness of your knife. Yeah, you can resharpen it if you have to, you can. But there's a time and a place where a good saw for a good clean cut just really comes in handy for stuff. It's got some other attachments that I don't use as often. Things like scissors. But what makes this cool is it's small, it's handy, it's a great size. It's not part of my everyday carry that I carry in my pocket all the time. But it is a good idea like on a moving day or something. Like tomorrow I'll generally have a multi-tool in my pocket if I'm moving, if I'm doing something with camp or moving camp. Because there's a lot of just oddball tasks that just come up. That screw that just won't come off that's supposed to be finger tight, but it's a little too tight. Something like that. And it's great. And like I said, it's $6. So if you leave it on the tongue of your trailer and drive off, you're not going to cry that it's a $200 Leatherman. It would be a great thing for, somebody that you wanted to give to get them into preparedness, or for somebody that you wanted to give as, just a good gift that they would probably use as a man. The next one, and I'm kind of going to jump around so it's not all tactical and blade stuff and shooting stuff, and it's not all other stuff. So I'm going to try and jump around and give it a good mix. The next one I'm going to talk about is the SA face shields. Now, a lot of people know about face shields now because of COVID-19 and mask restrictions and all that stuff. Let me just not get political, all that stuff. But even way before that, I used these, before COVID was ever even in my vocabulary. They're great for a lot of things besides a face mask. They are great for when you're out in the super hot desert. When I was, commanding that SRT team in Las Vegas. When I'm out shooting and it's well over 100 degrees, I can dip that, I'll take like an old water bottle or a bucket or something and dump water in it, and I'll dump that in there and then, rub my head with it and then put it on so it drips down on me, and it's kind of, impromptu air conditioning. It cools your body, especially the giant arteries that run through your neck, because the breeze blows on that and causes evaporation and just really cools you down. They're super great for that. They do a dual purpose. They can be wet or dry, but they stop your neck from getting sunburnt, which is, on me at least, one of the areas that gets the most sun, because if I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt or a short sleeve shirt, generally my neck, up into the point where my hair starts, is generally getting sun more than a lot of other places. So they're great for that. They're 100% polyester, so they're great for the wet thing, but they dry out really quick. You can wring them out, and then in most climates, they'll be dry fairly quickly. They also do work as the face shield, if you don't want to wear those surgical masks. They're great for that, and what's great about them is that if you just want to have that thing on your face the briefest amount of time as possible, then you just can pull it down and just hang it on your neck. You don't have to worry about putting it in your pocket or holding it or anything like that. You just pull it down and pull it back up. Good for the heat. They're also good for the cold. If you want, if you're out in the cold environment, you're wearing a jacket and you're wearing a hat, but you don't want to wear a scarf, you just throw that on, and it does keep your neck warm. It's not going to be as good as, 100% merino wool or the old polypro neck gaiters that you got in the Marine Corps. The polypropylene ones, are they going to be that good? No, probably not, but it's decent. And they're lightweight, and they're not super expensive. I think last time I bought some, you got several for $20. You get them. Oh, another good use for them. I generally, if I buy them, they come in a pack of like 4 or whatever. I'll get one that's super bright, obnoxious colored. And I'll get one that's a neutral color, gray or green or something like that, and maybe 1 or 2 more for my wife. And, teal or white or whatever she wants. The super obnoxious bright ones, obviously, are good for signaling. Everybody thinks the survival stuff is you want to hide, you want to be the stealth gray man. Well, sometimes you want to get found. Sometimes you want to be seen. Sometimes you're walking through an area with a bunch of hunters and you don't want to get shot, even if you don't legally have to have bright orange. Maybe you want that. Or maybe you're going running in the city at night and you want a bright orange or a bright green. Even if you don't want a neck gaiter, you just put it around your neck. And it's a nice bright thing so you don't get hit by a car. A lot of uses, obviously, the survival stuff, you could use it as a water filter. Hopefully before you've got a bunch of sweat and sunblock on it. A lot of different uses you can use for, 100% polyester, neck gaiter. And SA is the company that I've used. I've used them several different times. They work great. A little pro tip for those. Sometimes the full ones are a little big, especially if you're using them as a face mask. So cut them in half. And you can even cut them so that they're like taper, where they're big on one end and small on the other. And the big end just go in front of your face, and the small end goes behind your, behind your ears or whatever. And it's a very minimal face mask, for the COVID world that we live in now. We talked about something kind of cool and outdoorsy and survivally. How about something indoorsy? If you're a man, all but the most extreme unshavers, you generally shave from time to time. Now, I've been through all different razors throughout my life. The cheap, disposable, yellow-handled Bics that you get. The super expensive, Mach 3 blades that cost an arm and a leg. But I don't remember how many years ago now I discovered this, but I can't believe it took me so long. It's just the old school safety razors, guys, like the kind that your grandfather probably used in World War I, World War II. I think they were patented like in the 1800s. It just looks like, if you're familiar with like a utility razor blade, it looks like that, but it's called a safety razor blade. It's just a square razor blade with a blade on each end, and they make the razor that it goes into. The razor blades are disposable. You just buy a razor and put the new blade in it, and the blades are super cheap. In fact, let me go look, and so I'm not giving you a price I remember wrong. eBay right now, I saw a listing for the Euromax ones, which are the ones that I use. They're 100 blades for $7 and some odd cents. So do the math on that. And you get 2. You get 1 on each side. I'm not going to sit here and explain to you how to shave, but you get 2 blades, and a little pro tip, if you take them out of the razor and flip them upside down, you can generally use them more. They're so cheap, I don't often do that, but if I forgot to bring another blade, it works. But the safety razor blade is just a single piece of super thin, super sharp metal to shave your face. You don't need a Mach 3 or something crazy like that costs who knows how much for one blade. They make them other brands. They make the Gillette ones. They make Feathers, a really good one. I've used those before. I will say about the Euro ones that I get, they're super cheap. And every once in a while, you'll get one that's not as sharp as you'd like it to be. But it's if I get one like that, I just go to the next one. They're so cheap, I'm not super worried about it. But if you want to get like the Gillette ones or the feather ones, tend to be really good. They work great. One super sharp blade, that's all you need. And if you like cool old vintage stuff, you can go on eBay. I bought like an old school travel Gillette one from who knows how long ago. It's great. It's super tiny. It fits in a little bag. It fits in a little shave kit or my gym bag or whatever. It's small. It's lightweight. And it works great. My wife also switched to them. After I switched to them, she's got... Well, actually, I have two, and she pretty much just uses one of mine. And she shaves herself with it. And I haven't heard her complain about going back to a regular razor. She seems to like them as much as I do. The next thing I'm going to recommend, going back... Well, I guess we've talked about quite a few blades. Maybe I'll talk about something else. Okay, the next thing will set you back a whole $1. At least that's what they cost last time I checked. $1 and some odd cents. You get them at Walmart, generally in the camping section. They're called Bugables Citronella Wristband. And it comes in a little sealed packet. And it's kind of like the flea collars, but I'm sure it doesn't have the same disgusting chemicals that a flea collar has. But it's just a little wristband or anklet is the way I like to wear them. I'll just put it on my ankle, on my boot or whatever. Maybe 2 of them on each boot. And they're just citronella. They're a natural bug repellent. So they don't smell horrible. They don't, have those crazy cancer-causing deep, chemicals, which sometimes they have their place. Sometimes you're in South Georgia in the swamp or Florida, and you want like an aggressive, kill-everything bug repellent. But sometimes you're just going out fishing or going out for a walk, and there's a few mosquitoes and there's a few gnats. These things are $1. You put them on your boot, you put them on your hand. If you got a kid, you put them on the wrist. They're not, your kid probably shouldn't chew on it, depending on the age of your kid, but it's way better than spraying them with cancer-causing, DEET, and they lick that. I'm not a doctor. That's not medical advice. But they're great. They're $1. They're good for a lot of things. And a lot of times, if you're just going out fishing for an hour or two, you don't want all that nasty crap on you for the rest of the day. So they're really nice. You put them on, you take them off, and I think they smell great. I like the smell of citronella. So, for the alpha males out there, it just doubles as cologne. So you're good to go. You don't even have to use soap. You just put one of those on, you smell great. The next thing, super tactical, a mini Sharpie. Mini Sharpies are fantastic. I use them all the time. In fact, it's one of my EDC items. If you listen to the thing called 7 Things, an episode we did on the Alpha Male podcast about 7 things you should have on you, it's one of those things is something to write with. And I prefer, if you're a businessman, you probably want like a nice pen to have on you. But for my lifestyle, or even in addition to that, the Sharpies, and especially the mini Sharpies, they're like half the length of a regular Sharpie. I don't think I've ever used one until it ran out before I lost it. But they are fantastic. They're kind of hard to find. I haven't seen them at a regular store, but you order them, or if you do see them, they're the mini Sharpie. Like I said, they're about half the size. They're great. This morning, woke up, read my Bible, got up, did some dry fire, and went to sight in a pistol with a red dot. And obviously, if you've ever sighted something in, you start shooting holes in a piece of cardboard to sight it in, then you kind of get confused on which holes you shot and which ones you haven't. Well, I got the mini Sharpie in my pocket. The ones I've shot, I just put a little tick mark next to. A little pro tip for that. If you're doing that, the first tick mark, you can do whatever you want. But this is the pro tip that I like to do that I've seen other people do. Forget where I picked it up. But you're shooting to sight in a rifle or something. You shoot a couple rounds. That first group, you put a tick mark in there going down. The next time you shoot another group, you put a tick mark in going to the right. The next time you put a tick mark in going up. The next time you put a tick mark in going left. So you don't get confused as to which rounds you shot when. So there you go. Pro tip in addition to the cool kit. Alright guys, the next one, we've talked about pretty budget-friendly stuff so far. I would not consider myself a knife collector. I don't have a ton of knives, especially compared to a lot of people. I have a few knives. Like I said, sometimes I like to carry a fixed blade. If I'm going to be out foraging, if I'm, in the wilderness where I just have my EDC on me and I may end up getting lost or breaking my ankle and I may have to rely on that one tool. I do like a fixed blade knife. And the one I'm going to talk about is the Tops Mini Tracker. It's actually my EDC right now because I'm living off grid. I pull it out of my pocket with that Ulti Clip we talked about earlier. The Tops Tracker is a really cool knife if you look it up. It's kind of hard to explain on audio, but if you look it up, it's very distinctive. There's really nothing else that looks like it. You know, other imitators, other tracker knives, but Tops makes it. It's a Tom Brown tracker. I carry the Mini. I'm not generally about carrying a giant Rambo knife. The Mini has that blade size I talked about. It's, 3 or 4 inches long. And it's a great knife. It's not cheap, but it's not super expensive as far, you can get crazy spending a lot of money on some knives. It's not any kind of crazy, super steel. It's, $10.95. It's a good steel. It will rust. But not super worried about it. I'm living off grid in Arizona. And I thought at first, it looks kind of like some kind of space warrior knife. And I thought, maybe it's just a gimmick. But I've been using it for quite a while now. And I have to say, it's really a great knife. It really impressed me. If I were designing my own knife, I would design it a little bit different. But, 9 out of the 10 things that it has, or the shape that it has, I would keep. I really like it. I do believe Tops are made in America, so a shout out for that. It has a saw blade on the back. Like I said, a saw sometimes comes in handy. I have used a saw blade. It works. I've cut through some really hard polymer with the saw blade, or not cut through it, but cut notch into it. It worked great. I use it, obviously, it's one of my EDC knives. If I want a fixed blade, it's like my main go-to fixed blade EDC knife. The last saw blade notch is a little bit longer, and that's for pulling hot stuff out of a fire, like a percolator. Like I make my coffee the old school way, generally over a flame with a percolator. It's got good grippy handles. I forget if it's micarta or G10. I'm not a super knife snob when it comes to that stuff, but it's some kind of good grippy material that's not going to split like wood. And if you look at that blade, it's kind of got a swept in, and it's kind of hard to describe, but then it sweeps back. And that back swept edge, it really, really comes in handy. Like this morning, I was cutting a 1 gallon jug. Like I said, I live off grid and I was going to shave. Well, I don't just turn on the water and just have endless water like most people. So I cut a jug when I was done drinking out of it, a 1 gallon jug, and I made it into a bowl so I could use that razor that I talked about earlier with just a single blade to shave with. Got distracted. There's somebody walking in front of me with a Blade Yarns hat. I wonder if they're going hunting. It doesn't really matter. If they are, I hope they kill something awesome. Where was I? Oh, that swept back blade. So I punch into the 1 gallon jug. And you can do this with any knife, but it was just really handy to have that swept back blade. And it catches in that little notch. And I just spin it around and cut it and use it as a bowl. It's really good for cutting string and rope. You put it in that recessed area and pull it. And when it gets to that curve thing, it generally stops and cuts through the rope. Do you need it? No. But it is super handy. It's not just a gimmick. I found that it works really well. And it's a great size. It's not the Tops Mini Tracker. It's the smallest one they make. It's big enough I would feel fine if, I'd want a full butcher kit if I was going to butcher an elk or a bison, which I've done before. But I would do it with this, and I wouldn't cry about it. It's big enough for that. Like I said, for an EDC knife, one of the things you should think about, if we talked about in EDC episodes or defense episodes, this would be a decent defensive knife. If it was strictly a defensive knife, my go-to is kind of a push dagger. I believe I've talked about those before. But for an EDC knife for like wilderness and hunting and foraging, this would make a much better defensive tool than let's say like a Victorinox Swiss Army knife. So I'll go over a few pro tips. Like I said, I got mine set up with that Ulti Clip. I already hit on that, so I won't go back over it. But pull it out of my pocket. I guess this should be another thing to talk about, but they make these little toggles that go on like a jacket. They're a little ferrocerium rod for starting fire. And they're made for putting on a little toggle for like a jacket or a zipper. I'd recommend putting one on your go-to EDC bag or your go-to hunting jacket or something like that. If they get wet, they're still going to work. But I've got one set up on this. I've got a little piece of micro cord wrapped around it that's long enough to use it as a lanyard. So if for some reason I wanted a knife and I was going somewhere and I didn't have pockets, I could hang it around my neck. I don't generally like carrying neck knives like that. But if I forgot my other, knife that I usually keep in my gym bag, I could throw this one around my neck and put a shirt over it or whatever, for whatever reason. Plus it's some extra string that's pretty strong. I've got enough on there to use as a neck knife, but I generally just keep it wrapped up in my pocket with one of those toggles to start a fire on it. I also have a little piece of blue string on there to make tassels, blue thread, and then I have a piece of monofilament wrapped around the Ulti Clip with a fish hook on it. It really doesn't add much weight to the thing at all. Those things, I have the ability to start a fire, to go fishing. I can straighten that needle out and shave the barb off and use it as a needle if I need to repair kit or repair myself. Oh, and I have a little yellow sticker on the back of that Ulti Clip that I can fold up, and it makes it super visible. If I take it out of my pocket and I drop it, it's easier to find. But also, I like those little stickers for dry firing. So if I'm ever somewhere at a hotel or whatever and I want it to dry fire, I could flip that up and I could use it as a target. So enough about that, the Tops Mini Tracker. Pretty cool knife. Oh, the next one is a great one. I've used this for years and years and years. You may think, listening to my background and all the things that I've done, that I'm awesome with directions, with orienteering. But I'll be the first to admit that naturally I'm not the best at it. My wife is generally better at directions, especially in a city, than I am. So I know that. So generally, if I'm going out scouting, orienteering, this thing is really cool and it goes with me. And it is a Bushnell Backtrack. I have one for me and one for my wife. They are fantastic. They're about the size, I guess, of a hockey puck, but thinner and obviously much lighter than a hockey puck. In the vast majority of situations, you will be able to find your way back to camp. I was worried about this being a short episode and not having a lot to talk about, but this is going on, just 27 and some odd minutes, and I'll do the wind down, I guess. If you guys like this kind of stuff, I guess I could do more of it. I do this podcast mainly for you. I did a couple of short cartridge talks on gunfighter life, and they seem to be some of the most popular ones. So I'm not going to stop doing the deep philosophical stuff on Alpha Male Podcasts that we cover, but if you guys like this, I can do more episodes like this. So let me know if you guys like the gear chat. You guys, I don't have to explain to you. I'm not going to go through all the stuff I normally go through. You know how to do the things, how to comment and do all the stuff. I will say, if you want more, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. If you want to support, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. Scroll down to Patreon. That's all I'm going to say about it today. Whatever you do, whatever kind of man you are, I hope you feel called to be an alpha male, a follower of Jesus Christ, and the man that God created you to be, made in His very own image. Thanks, and have a blessed day.